Yo, army guy.
Yo, purple guy.
Are you watching football in the background?
No, that was a game of Madden that I just lost earlier.
Do you think that the people in this room have been red pilled?
Uh, yeah. I might ask Gary what he feels about LMS. He probably knows about it.
He's probably he'd probably agree with it. He seems really logical.
I think it's common sense, actually.
Agree with logical things because that's what logical people do. Okay, anyway, where were you? Assholes. I had to actually reboot the computer. That's a pain in the ass. So anyway, so what would I agree with?
Gary, when you were younger, did you ever go out and try to meet women?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me, do I think vaginas should be sold separately? Yes, I do. I think they ought to be sold separately. You ought to be able to buy your own little kit. Vagina sold separately. No woman attached. Cool! But they always are lame. They're like just cheap latexy ones. I hate those ones they sell. They're such a rip-off.
Yeah. I mean, they're not as much of a rip-off as real women are.
Well, I'm just saying. Yeah, either way you're gonna lose. So yeah. But anyway,
Me and army guy are
what do you
curious
ask?
about your opinion on what attracts women to men.
Oh, um, well, I think women like the confidence thing. I think that does win. Because women hated me when I was younger because I didn't have any confidence. So. And then it wasn't until I became an arrogant, obnoxious asshole that all of a sudden I seemed to be more charming. So, but yeah, women like confidence. So it does work, unfortunately. And it grows on them too. It's like women will do that, oh, I would never sleep with you thing. They'll do that like they don't like you thing, but then all of a sudden you'll grow on them, which is really funny. And all of a sudden if you're a little bit disinterested, then all of a sudden they'll find you interesting. Like if you're interested and then they put you off, then after they've done that, after they've thoroughly dumped you and made it clear that they'll never ever sleep with you, not for $1 zillion, then all of a sudden they'll almost pay you to sleep with them, which is strange.
Someone mentioned
But what?
earlier that the human mind is a or the human brain is a product of both your genetics and how people treat you or nature treats you. Do you think you'd be confident because women treat you better in the first place?
Um, treat you better in the first place. Um, Yeah, it's just so hard to, calculate all this stuff because, women, just like men, they're very different. Some women, very different than other women, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, one thing breeds the other. I mean, success with women breeds success with women, kind of a thing, I suppose. But I don't know how much of that just becomes intuitive. It just becomes a habit of personality because you find what women, if you make women laugh, women like that if you're funny, and so you learn little habits of personality to try to make women comfortable with you, but at the same time you don't want to seem synthetic or shallow. So that's the trick. You got to be like shallow enough to make them feel secure, but troubled enough to make yourself interesting. Like there's more to know about you. They want you to be somewhat mysterious, like there's some kind of deep, dark secret. And they also want you to be flawed, because they want to be able to feel like, oh, I can help this guy. I got something this guy needs. They want to feel like they can make you a better man. So you have to seem like you're troubled or flawed or are struggling a little, so they can feel like, yeah, I can give this guy what he needs to be more of a person or something. You know, they want to see you as something they can fix.
But what about the guys that are all of those things, yet they just happen to be 3 foot tall and extremely ugly?
Yeah, well, some women, to tell you the truth, they just don't care. I mean, it really is about just finding. I mean, they're not as physically controlled as men are. You know, they're not controlled by the aesthetics as much as men are. So I'm not saying it's not a disadvantage. I'm not saying that, you know, 3 foot tall ugly guys don't have a disadvantage. They do, but it's not as controlling as men think it is. You know, I'd like to think it mattered on how you look, just because I happened to, at certain times in my life, look pretty good, and I was like kind of pissed off that, you know, some women just didn't care. I mean, I didn't need to bother looking good. And it was just kind of irritated me that, yeah, this one would probably let me fuck her even if I was 50 pounds overweight. She'd still fuck me. You know, like it wouldn't matter to her. And that sort of pissed me off, because I'm saying, like, well, okay, I go to the trouble to look pretty good, and she doesn't even give a shit. And that was kind of funny.
So do you think in any given moment with a girl that either rejects you or accepts you sexually, that you could have changed things to influence her opinion?
Well, I think so, but you know, especially now, I just think that because I do sort of understand, and not that I'd ever want to game anybody, not that I'd want to manipulate somebody psychologically, but I'm certainly much more better. I'm certainly better at game theory than I used to be in terms of knowing how to manipulate a woman in that sense, because I sort of know what women are looking for, and they do want it to mean something, and they do want, you know, there's these little things you could just make it, you know, just subtle things in your personality where you can make them understand that you want to be inside of them for some sort of bigger reason than just sex. You know what I'm saying? And they need to know that you know, this isn't just about my penis. Even though it is, it isn't. You know, you just have to give them that, you know, that there is some kind of, you do have some sort of, there's something more happening than just sex. And that's, you know, and that's not that hard to convey. But I mean, I think you got to do that. So I know that that would have made a difference in some of my interactions with women. But I mean, you know.
Okay, so on the other extreme end of this, do you think that using game theory and having no other advantage, you could have a very successful sexual life?
Yeah, well, I think anybody can. I mean, look at Ben Franklin. I mean, this is not an attractive man, right? And he
He was
apparently,
quite well off money-wise, though.
well, regardless, I'm just saying that, you know, he did quite well. And he wasn't exactly Mr. Charming. But he actually had something, you know, that made him interesting. And so I'm just saying that for women, it's about being interesting. And they also, like I said, a lot of, I mean, you know, um, jokes don't hurt. I mean, women do like to laugh, so they like somebody who can make them laugh, make them feel comfortable. It is important to a lot of women. But you know, don't listen to anything I say, because I don't know shit about women.
Well, it's a sort of a topic of interest for me and Army because we have very different viewpoints on how it works or what can influence your chances, I guess.
Yeah, well, it really depends on what you're after, too, you know. I mean, you know, if you're just after one night stands, I guess you take a different approach, you know, and go after a different style of woman, too, I suppose. You know, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. There's some women definitely are higher maintenance. You know, some women are harder to bed than others, you know. There's definitely women who are, you know, there's only going to be 10 guys in that woman's lifetime, you know, that are going to sleep with her, kind of thing. And then there's women who are going to sleep with 1,000 guys, you know. So there's all kinds of different odds you're playing.
So Purple, you do a really good job interviewing. Purple. So I feel like
know what kind of questions I wanted.
the advice he's giving you is better for. Sorry, I feel like the advice that he's giving you is better for higher quality women than typical sluts.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely say that's true. I mean, obviously, sluts. I mean, there's some women, all you gotta do is, you bring the bottle and you can have whatever you want. You know what I mean? There's some women who are, all you gotta do is get them drunk and, you're home. But I
You
would.
think
Yeah, but even that, I don't typically often see high quality women going with guys simply for looks. Because Purple is under the impression that looks, money, and status are really all that matters.
Yeah, well, money's good, and status is good, but yeah, looks is the third of those three. So if you're going to use them, I guess I'd use them in a different order. I mean, looks, like I said, women will say, some women will say it's important, but the fact is, it's not on the top. I don't know what the top 5 list is, but it might not even be in the top 5. Which I think it's just the way it is. I mean, I'm saying a range of looks. I mean, obviously you can't be like unhealthy or, overtly dirty or stinky. You can't have like leaky pustules on your face or something. I mean, so there's a limitation to how hideous you can be. You can't be like boogers sliding out of your nose when you're talking or something. You know what I mean? You can't be overtly disgusting. But you can be pretty gross. So, yeah, anyway, it's kind of weird. It's like, the thing men, it is a funny thing, but yeah, I mean, it's like, it'd be so much easier if women were men, and, but that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, just, if women had the same kind of mechanism of attraction to men, it would make things much more understandable in terms of relationships. You'd know what you were exchanging. But with women,
I guess on a conversational level, yeah. But if women judged men in the same way that men judged women, I think there'd be a huge divide between who has. What the fuck was that? Sorry, it's another chat room. Um, there would be a huge divide between who has any sexual encounters and who doesn't.
Well, I just mean that if women were in it for the same thing, then you knew what you'd be exchanging. I guess it'd be a lot more frivolous relationships, but also they'd at least be a lot more honest, in terms of what was being exchanged. So I'm just saying, but it's because I just find that it is a little bit frustrating when, if you're with a woman and you're getting, and sex isn't that important, or this, you know what I mean? The things that are really important to you aren't important to them. It is kind of like it's kind of pisses, it's not that it pisses you off. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little bit disappointing that they're not, you know what I mean? That you're not,
Yeah, I know
you know what I'm saying? You're enduring her like, let's go shopping or something, or let's go for a walk and pick wildflowers. So okay, you're doing that shit even though you don't really want to do it. And then she's having sex, even though okay, it's okay, but she's not really, she's just doing it like, okay, it's better than, but it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like what she's after. And so it's like you're just kind of almost feeling like you're, not that you're using her, but you almost, you know what I mean? You just don't, it just feels better when you're thinking the other person is into it, kind of a thing. And when they're not really into it, it just kind of, that kind of sucks. And, a lot of women aren't really, it's not that they're not in, I'm using the wrong words, but they don't have, it's just not the same, it's just not the same. And that's just kind of, irritating. I mean, when you look down and you see a woman's eyes closed, you know, that's just one of those things. You're just like, you know, fuck, you know, she's not even here. You know, she's off somewhere else. You know, and you're like,
Well, I mean,
yeah, damn. I
she
mean,
could be concentrating on the pleasure of the moment and just
well,
closing her eyes to.
I'm just saying it also gives you that, you know, that's a nice excuse, but you know, she's also could be, you know, off to see the wizard. You know, she could be skipping off with, you know, who knows who she's fucking having sex with in her head, you know.
There
Yeah,
was some
yeah.
story about in the news about some guy in China. His wife wouldn't stop shopping at the mall, and he got so fed up that he just jumped off the balcony 3 floors and committed suicide.
Yeah, well, 3 stories. You're really taking a chance of fucking it up, aren't you? I mean, I definitely would have tried to find a bigger building to jump off of. But thanks for that. I'm sure there was other issues that were bothering him. I can't, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe you know, maybe she was, you know, he was totally bankrupt or something. Seems I would find something else to do before I resorted to killing myself, but who knows?
Uh, if you don't mind me asking, how many women have you been with in your life?
2. Yeah, not too many. Uh, I was always kind of cautious, I have to admit. I didn't fuck around. But I had the best of it and the worst of it. I had definitely had the best of times and the worst of times. That's kind of how I put it. I mean, I have had the long, hard, brutal, awful relationship, and you know, I've had the short, perfect, wonderful, excellent relationship. So I've kind of known the best of both worlds. You know, one that's all vacation and one that's all work. It's like those two extremes. I've known those, you know, like the relationships, it's all work. It's like you'd never get a day off. It's like it's just all fucking work. Every conversation is work. Every interaction is work. You know, and the other way where every single moment you spent with somebody was just perfect.
Do you think on a practical level, it's easier to just live your life and go after the women that show you interest, or go to the mall and talk to every single girl in sight?
Yeah, you know, I'm frankly just waiting until the Japanese. I mean, they're getting pretty good at making these fake women, so it's almost like, yeah, just buy one of those robot women when they come. You know, you know, you don't need. For me personally, I'm just after the vacation part of relationships anyway. I mean, I
No,
really don't need somebody.
if if you could go back and live your life again, would you have just approached girls all the time, like when you were younger, or would you have kind of just waited for them to give you a signal that they're interested first?
Yeah, well, like I said, I had plenty of women that I could have had if I would have picked up on the signals, and I took it all very seriously. You know, I just didn't. I already knew I wasn't like a one night stand kind of person. I knew I didn't want to have sex with somebody once and then never have sex again. I knew that wasn't going to work. So I was looking for this idea of I want something that's habitual. You know, something I can build into my life. So I was looking at something durable just as a, because I was just pragmatic. I mean, I have to admit, I was just logical enough to know I'm probably going to live more than one day, so I better have a plan for the day after, you know. And if I really like a girl, I don't want to be stuck thinking, you know, where I'm left holding the I got nothing bag, you know, the day after. So I don't want to be the one sitting there waiting for her to call me kind of thing. So I was always kind of like sure, making sure somebody really wanted to be with me for some reason that meant something. And well, anyway, so that's just slowed everything down. I have my own neurotic issues and blah 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 blah. So, but I'm grateful in the sense that I mean, if I had sex as much as I wanted to, or if I was able to take advantage of every opportunity, yeah, I could have ended up with a venereal disease pretty easy, or some other kind of bullshit, right? So, I mean, the good news is I don't have herpes, and so yeah, that's good. But yeah, the bad news is maybe you don't have the relationships you wanted. But again, all this stuff is, to me, it's difficult. Relationships are difficult. So to me, it's just the idea of just fucking somebody one night and that's it. Doesn't even make sense. So I don't, I don't even know how to, I would never want to hurt somebody. So to me, it's all very dangerous, and you're messing with somebody else's life, and it was all very, it's very, it just wasn't simple enough. I'd almost like it. I'd almost like if sex would have been some sort of like you go to some kind of place, you know, you go to the place where you have sex or something. It's like you go to the sex store, and I don't know. It's like you get a massage, and then you have sex, and you don't have to really have a relationship with anybody, or know anybody, or see anybody ever again. Maybe that would work, but I just don't know. Yeah, well, brothel's just too overtly paying for it. I mean, I want a brothel where people are there because they want to be there also. So, I mean, the idea of employing somebody to service me is quite offensive. Yeah, well, I just, you can't get more exploitation, right, than paying for sex. I mean, come on, it's pretty foul.
Well, it's not necessarily always exploitation. I'm actually friends with more than one girl where I live that have sex for a living, get paid for it.
Well, I know, but you can't say it's not exploitation unless they're doing it based on a very, where they still have an awful lot of power of discrimination, where they can make an awful lot of choices about who they end up sleeping with. Otherwise, it's pretty overtly just taking advantage of somebody's desperation.
Well, on a certain level, they have to, I guess, meet their monthly rent, but beyond that point, they have full control over who they have sex with.
Well, I'm just saying, you say they have full control, yet they got to pay their rent doing it. So I guess that to me, that's not really full control. So um, I think it's, well, whatever.
Well, I mean, beyond that point,
I personally
like,
wouldn't want to be in the position where, you know, um, it's not the kind of thing I'd want to be paid out of. My choice to have of who you share your sexuality with, I think, should not be decided by issues of finance. And I
there's at least one happy hooker out.
what?
Oh, I'm just responding to the chat. Well, I'm saying the two girls I know, one of them is I would say conventionally not so attractive, and she probably at some points does struggle to pay the rent, and the other one is really attractive, and she has guys that will pay her just for her company.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying on both levels, I just don't find it um, satisfactory. I wouldn't want to be the buyer or the seller.
Yeah. When it comes to hookers, I guess as a sexual release, it's fine, but paying for the comfort and relationship of another person isn't very realistic or genuine.
Well, I'm just saying it's a little more serious than having somebody be your friend for the day. It's not exactly like it's not like you're hiring a big brother or something. So I mean, it's sort of an intimate activity, and it is a kind of an imposing activity in some respects. And I just find it, I'm just very uncomfortable with the idea of somebody doing it for money. Personally, I just don't think I could be comfortable with that relationship.
Well, yeah, the prostitution does serve a use for the people that otherwise would have an extremely hard time finding the sexual intimacy.
Well, I know, but it's not sexual intimacy, in my opinion. It's
Sorry, again, I'm responding to the chat.
I understand who you're responding to. I'm just saying it doesn't change your point. I mean, I don't think. I'm trying to think of other examples where people don't necessarily go out and find somebody, some way to contrive the activity. So it's almost like hiring somebody to come to your birthday party. I mean, we can all figure out how to get by on our birthday without having a cake and party goers and hats and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just saying, if you can get through most of your life without having somebody to have sex with that you're paying, I mean, I'm just saying that it just seems kind of fake and phony to say that this is some sort of need that's served where I'm not sure the need is genuine, and I'm not sure it's getting any genuine need is getting served. So I mean, in a way, it's like satisfying a gambling addiction or something.
What about someone who's a virgin and is just afraid of sex? So the first time they go through with a hooker, and beyond that, they're comfortable.
I don't think that would be at all healthy, okay? You know, I don't think you're going to express your sexuality in some kind of healthy way by paying somebody to have sex with you. I just think that would be silly.
Even just for the first time to know what exactly would be going on.
I'm just saying, I don't know, was there some doubt about what was going on? I mean, you know, when were you, I mean, once you got past, what, age 11, you know, it isn't that complicated. Oh yeah, I stick my dick in vagina, I can figure that out. I mean, it sort of occurs to you when you're there and you're with a woman, you say, yeah, I can figure out how to do this.
It isn't that complicated, but anxiety-wise, it can be really extreme to take a girl home for the first time and sleep with her. And some guys I know don't ever get past that point.
I think that problem only arises because there is some sort of lack of sincerity in their relationships with these women. So I think that's probably why that's a problem. So I think that kind of intimidation is probably more of just a psychological lie, you know, a psychological canard, and they're finding an excuse to use a surrogate because they don't want the responsibility of you know, something more than that, I suppose. But I'm just saying, there's something, I just think that overtly, I mean, it's never seemed very intuitive to me to say I would wish to express my sexuality by paying somebody, all right, to express it. I mean, that just seems, it seemed wrong when I was a kid that why would I want to do that? I mean, I don't want to be with somebody, I have to pay for them to be with me? I mean, that just seems so fucking, I mean, that's like fail all over the place. That's like just wallowing in failure. That's like buying a big giant ticket on the Failure Express. So I think I'd wait till it was obvious that I just can't possibly function in any kind of... But even then, like I said, I still don't see it as a solution. So you have sex today. What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do next week? What are you going to do for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
So to me, it's like satisfying a gambling addiction. That's all I'd say about it. I'm just saying I think you're probably better off if you don't go to Las Vegas. Find some other entertainment. Learn how to masturbate creatively. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with hookers is, you know, they're getting paid, and they're probably liars, and you know, who knows where they've been, and who knows what they have, and who knows what you're asking for in terms of what your surprises you're going to end up with. It's a very dangerous way of gaining your gratification.
Yeah, it's never.
Actually, on that topic, I know a guy that was dating a good friend of mine, um, and I guess after 7 months or so, she found out that he was cheating on her with a hooker that he paid to sleep over. And it was really strange to me because he actually had a really attractive, nice woman that was in love with him, and he still felt the need to pay someone.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously people have certain fetishes that, you know, they can't play out, you know, with the person they're with because they don't think they're going to accept that behavior or want to play along. So maybe he wanted to do something that was a little bit too aggressive or too challenging for the woman he was with. Um, but I mean,
She actually got hold of his emails and his phone records and saw the conversations, and it was just about vanilla straight sex.
yeah, well, like I said, obviously I think there's something there. I mean, whether she wasn't quite attractive enough or there's some reason why she wasn't what he's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe she was good in a lot of ways, but she just wasn't quite what he wanted in terms of a personality or something. But I mean, there was something, obviously. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that, you know, that's sort of a deal breaker, right? I mean, you know, how would you feel if a woman did that to you? You know, if you're with a woman
Of
and then you
course,
find
feel
out,
terrible.
you know, she's doing some, you know, some gigolo guy on the side who, you know, who knows what kind of diseases he's got, you know, and she's bringing that to your bed. That's, you know, I'm just, you know, personally, that's what just makes relationships very complicated. They're just not simple. So I do them quite imperfectly and as, you know, you know, I mean, you know, just I have like pieces of relationships with different people, and you know, it's probably safer that way. Like part of me doesn't even want to love anybody anymore, just because you know, you don't want to care too much because you know something happens to them and whatever, and it's devastating. You know, I just don't
Well,
want.
in a
Part of
logical sense, there's no actual harm to you. It's just an emotional feeling of pain.
Yeah, I know, but there's no way of getting around the fact that it's intuitive to your nature to become attached to things. So you can say, I can give you a cat, and I could say to you, don't love the cat. But I think as the cat, you live with the cat, and the cat does silly little things, and the cat's cute, and he does shit, and you're going to get attached to the cat, and the cat's going to be there for 10 years, and all of a sudden the cat's not there anymore. You're going to feel it.
Okay, on the topic of emotional attachment, do you think you can detach yourself from being rejected by people?
Yeah, I think you can, to protect yourself in the sense that you can have a confidence about your own integrity. So there's a point where you can get to where you feel like I've won enough. You know what I mean? It's like I did it well enough or I've accomplished something where I can say, okay, I have substance and that can never be taken from me. And so
So
from that strong position,
that's your idea of confidence, then.
you can handle the other little failures. You can rationalize them away in a sense by saying, well, look, I did do this good thing. So even if I fucked up here, this compensates for it. So you have something to compensate. So it's almost like, because I know my self-perception has definitely changed through time where I'm pretty comfortable with who I am now. even though I'm a flawed person, I'm a bit of an asshole, I can say that and just say, okay, I acknowledge the asshole part. I acknowledge that I'm constantly trying to improve myself. And yeah, I'm not beating myself to death working at it, but I do work at it. And so I have a rationalization that works for me. And so it maintains in me a sense of kind of neutrality, in the sense that I don't think of myself as being incredibly successful or as being incredibly um, purposeless or functionalist or useless. So I know I've gained enough functionality where I'm useful to people. I know I have some kind of value. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not in a place that I find so obnoxious that I have to do something to change it, or something like that. I'm just saying I'm a lot more comfortable with me than I was 20 years ago. And that's the irony. I'm a lot more flawed now than I was 20 years. 20 years ago I was a lot stronger. I wasn't. I didn't have this deprivation of age. I didn't have a lot of the weaknesses I have now. And it's funny that then I was a lot more insecure than I am now, even though I'm in a weaker position in terms of my place in the world. But it's certainly just a head game. I mean, life is a head game. It's what you do with things internally. So you can argue that you can, theoretically, you can Mr. Spock your way out of anything, and make yourself harmless. But I sort of concede that I am too much of an animal to be able to do that. I'll never be a Mr. Even though I'd like to be Mr. Spock, there's no way I'm ever going to be a Mr. Spock.
What do you mean by Mr. Spock?
Well, just in the sense that you could live in some sort of logical sense where you could know that all attachment is bullshit, emotions is bullshit. Like, obviously, Mr. Spock was not Mr. Spock anymore because, right, Mr. Spock got all upset because Vulcan got blown up, right? And Vulcan, technically, Mr. Spock shouldn't be any more upset about Vulcan blowing up than any other planet he saw blow up and all the other planets he's seen blown up. So it shouldn't mean anything more to him, so obviously Mr. Spock was a fraud. But I just mean this idea of not being owned by emotion. So I just mean that the idea that, taking complete control of the emotion, just recognize emotion's bullshit. There's understanding, and that's good, but the emotion is a waste. But, yeah, there's no way I can do this mind over matter thing to make myself impervious to my emotions. Well, there's no way. I haven't done it successfully.
Yeah. Some people experiment with drugs to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think that does exactly the opposite, right? I mean, from my perspective anyway, they all seem to turn into emotional tree-hugging loop-de-loops, when they go on their little yellow submarine phantasmagorical, LSD rides.
I've got to agree. Drugs have left me pretty much an emotional wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's not the road to Spockian discipline. It's going to make you cry and laugh and cry and laugh and cry and laugh and cry. And smoke some orange juice. Ah, okay, he's drinking orange juice. Okay, I thought it was a bong. The old orange juice container bong. Yeah. Yeah. All right, it's the real thing.
Yeah. I don't have to resort to using an organ container as a bong.
Yeah, well, chicks like that too. Chicks like guys who drink orange juice. So walk around with your Tropicana container. See how that works. I bet you they should do. I wish they'd do that. I wish there was lots of money to do crazy science. They should have a show like Crazy Science, and they could just statistically find out whether guys who carry Tropicana containers get laid more often. It'd be just a great survey. Just survey says, go into a mall with a Tropicana container and see if it gets you laid.
Well, actually, there is a group that kind of does the opposite. What they do is they will dress up in a costume, say like a fat suit, and put on makeup to make themselves look fat, or sit in a wheelchair, and they prove time after time that regardless of what you look like, you can still get a girl's number.
Yeah, well, getting a number and getting somewhere are two different things, but yeah. But anyway, yeah, I'm just saying that it would be, there's so much more science they could be doing, I guess is all I'm saying. It just, there's lots of this stuff that I just wish they would, you know, do the surveys to actually find out how it works out in reality.
There's an interesting TED talk at the moment about they did some studies about people with money, and it turns out that they're more likely. They did some experiments. And they're more likely to cheat, and they're more likely to steal and be dishonest if they've got more money. Like they'll play Monopoly, and the game was rigged, and that the people who had the more money from the start of the game were more likely to cheat and show displays of dominance and all this crap. And they did quite a few different studies. It was quite interesting. Quite an interesting thought.